strange lights in the sky. The idea of being visited by beings from faraway galaxies has been a staple in the human psyche throughout history. Are we alone, or is it possible that we are being visited from the stars? And if we are, is it malevolent, or a benevolent race of beings simply observing, or perhaps something much more? We will discuss that and more on this episode of White Men.
Hello, Chris Gordon here with you for DJB Productions. I have a great show today. Today is UFOs here on Bite Me. Today we have Danny J with us, our awesome producer. There he is.
What's up, guys?
Returning is Lily Hernandez, who has always brought the science. I've learned so much from her in the past couple of shows. It's amazing. And we have a very special guest, ladies and gentlemen, Shawn Hernandez. It's Impact Wrestling superstar. Look at this guy. I am intimidated. It's a pleasure to meet you, Shawn. And I'm actually going to kick this off with you because I was speaking with Lily a few weeks ago, and I have a feeling that you and I may have possible similar ideas about UFOs. So this might be a fun wormhole, if you will, to go down. So let's start this off. Are we believers? Do we believe that this is a thing?
I do. I mean, I have one question, and if anyone can logically answer this, I will shut the hell up. We go from barely getting a plane off the ground for a couple yards in early 1908 or something like that. 6 years later, we're going to the moon. Answer that question logically, and I will shut the hell up. I will never talk about aliens again.
Well, that's interesting you say that because I've always had this bizarre idea that if, you know, and I believe dinosaurs were here for, well, Lily can answer this. How many years were dinosaurs here?
Oh, Lord, you're putting me on the spot.
Well, you know, we're talking millions and millions and millions of years, and not one of them could make a radio. I mean, millions of years. And then all of a sudden, the Homo sapien shows up. And, you know, I know I'm going down
but you know what, though? And we can call it evolution, but isn't it funny that Homo sapien did not exist during the time of the dinosaurs? There was no coexistence at all. So how you could have one species and then they completely go away, and all of a sudden they never come back to a point. They never come back, and then a completely different species comes up and dominates the planet. So, I mean, I don't go around saying this in bars and shit like that, but like, I honestly think that you're looking at series of experiments on this planet to see how they would flourish, how they would be, that type of thing, almost like a petting zoo of sorts. And it's right, yeah. And I'm like, it's like one of those things where, and like I said, you don't say this out in public, you know what I mean? You just keep it to this show and that's it. But like, it's one of those things where I think like, it just seems awfully convenient that a much more dominant species of animal was not around when Homo sapien was, because let's face it, if we were, we would be extinct. And it would still be dinosaurs on this planet.
Well, let me interject some science into this conversation. So some of what you guys are saying is I mean, kind of correct. Evolution, I could talk for hours about evolution and things like that. Dinosaurs, the way you guys are thinking about it, like Jurassic Park dinosaurs, no, those don't exist anymore. But there are a lot of animals now that came from different species of dinosaurs. Birds are tiny dinosaurs. And so, you know, like we're around birds all the time. But I mean, just, you know, playing devil's advocate and pulling back from the science a little bit. I am definitely a believer that there's something out there, because I am not so arrogant to think that we are the only intelligent things in the universe. I watched Cosmos when I was little. I love Carl Sagan and Neil deGrasse Tyson, and I'm glad that they revamped that show. I have different opinions on that kind of stuff, and my husband and I have very interesting conversations about it. But I do like that you guys are thinking outside the box. That's fantastic scientific inquiry.
Well, there's your apple for your teacher desk. But I mean, like, guys, there's so many different things. I mean, you bring religion into it, and I'm the kind of person, I am a religious person. I keep it to myself. I'm not fanatical and blah blah blah. But I also I keep myself open to logical possibilities. I too am a science person. That's where I excelled in school. And I'm because I'm a very logic based person, and I think that's where people that are logic based tend to gravitate towards science versus people that are not. Like my wife was never a science person, so she cannot fathom life on other planets. She'll fathom ghosts and goblins coming into your fucking house. But there are no aliens. And I said, you have to understand, all you need is for a planetoid with similar gases and being the same distance from a star, and you have the makings of another Earth, as an example. And I said, within reason. So I said, it's just, I guess, scientific luck that our Earth was able to support us here. That's why if you look at things at Mars at some point had oceans. Mars at some point had things, and for whatever reason, we don't know why that particular planet dried up. It could have been receded underground, and it could be like the what's that with the gnomes and all that shit that are underground and stuff. I mean, we don't know. I mean, I watched Total Recall. I know they live underground on that movie, but like that's a possibility. You never know. But it's all logic based to have it like that. So I'm very open to it. I know Shawn, you are too, because you're like, tell me the answer why.
Well, and he makes a very good point about that 60-year span where we went from barely getting off the ground to, going to the moon. That's a fantastic point. He's asked me that on numerous occasions, and I can't answer him.
Right.
Well, that brings up one of the thoughts that I remember. I don't know exactly where I heard this, but or actually watched. It was a lecture. The idea that how the Earth became what it is was a collision, and it was a collision with a planet that had life on it. And the reason our moon was once part of this. Just bear with me here. Part of this rock that is Earth. And in space, everything compresses. It's a vacuum, right? Just compresses, which means it's going to be a ball, which is our planet. If you took the oceans off of this rock known as Earth, it wouldn't be round. It would be a jagged piece of weird rock.
A meteor. It would look like a meteor.
It would look like a meteor.
Yeah.
And that was this interesting theory about, well, it got back to the missing link. Like, where is it? How did the Homo sapien just arrive? You go into the whole pyramid thing as well, but it was just odd to me. And again, going back to Shawn's point, not just that 60-year span is important too, but it was just the arrival of a species that needed to change its environment to survive. The only species on this planet that ever had to physically change everything around it to survive, because we were incapable of surviving otherwise. Couldn't do it.
That's an interesting way to.
We didn't have the strength that the other predators had.
Right.
I mean, we would have. I mean, look, I could probably go to the park on a bad day, and I wouldn't have a chance against a bear. Shawn, on the other hand, would probably be fine. But me, you see what I mean? So we're not.
You know what, though? Here's a funny thing to capitalize what you're saying is that there are animals in the animal kingdom now that we know of, like bears, like raccoons, like beavers. They all have their certain survival instincts that they can do. They all have certain survival patterns. Like, for example, a skunk sprays you as a defense mechanism. Humans don't have defense mechanisms.
Well,
We
no, we do. It's just not as apparent. That's biological adaptation. You have to adapt to your environment.
Right.
Otherwise, you do not survive. So that whole thing about survival of the fittest doesn't necessarily mean the biggest and the strongest. It's
Mhm.
who's smart enough to adapt to their environment, produce viable offspring, and then take care of those offspring so that the species can continue. That's what that is.
But you
But
know
we're
what?
getting off topic. Y'all are
Yeah.
supposed to be talking
Yeah.
about aliens.
But my point being, and this goes back to aliens, is that we are so drastically different from what was dominant on this planet. And let's face it, yes, we do adapt. We are thinking. We are able to think. We are able to adapt and adapt logic to it and say, well, I can go two different ways. Sometimes animals can't do that type of thing. But it's one of those things where we literally, if you like they do that naked and afraid or whatever, I'd be fucking petrified if I was naked out in the woods because I wouldn't know what the hell to do. Things are going to be crawling
Because
up
you're
in me.
domesticated.
Yeah, well, yeah, I am. I need my pomade. I mean, I got a
That's
lot
like
of stuff I
putting a
gotta do.
I got my
house cat
pomade.
out there. You're a domestic animal. It's not the same thing, man.
So let's ask the question.
Yeah.
That movie Fire in the Sky,
Yeah.
abductions,
Mm-hmm.
viable, or was that
100% believe that. I 100% believe that.
Go, Shawn. Go.
Of course, of course.
okay? Go ahead.
Talk about abduction.
Real quick. This young lady I'm married to, I think she's an alien hybrid herself. I'm not even joking. The lady's left-handed,
Mm-hmm.
type 1 diabetic,
Yep.
and the lady's type O negative blood. Now, do your research. How many people are left-handed in the world? Like less than 10%.
Yes.
How many people have O negative blood? Less than 10.
Wow.
How many people have type 1 diabetes? Less than 10% of the whole world. And she's all three.
That's crazy.
I've looked it up many, many times, and you can't even get the statistics for how many people have those three types. And I think she's definitely an alien hybrid, bro.
I don't trust you, Lily.
He's been telling me that. He's
But
been
okay.
telling me that for years.
But okay, I mean, can you explain, if less than 10% of the whole world
Right.
has one of those characteristics, and she has three of those, bro.
On a scientific,
He tells me.
Yeah.
He
I was gonna
tells
say-
me all the time.
Yeah.
And he's not wrong about the statistics. Like statistically speaking, it is kind of weird.
Yeah.
And then, the fact that I have an insulin pump and stuff like that, I require machines to keep me alive. And he says on this planet because I'm not from here, or part of me is not from here. And that's
Right.
why I have a rough
Well,
time.
That's interesting because one of the ideas about aliens is that they live among us. But going a step further, is it possible
Mm-hmm.
that an alien civilization was here millions of years ago and could not survive on this planet but needed a resource from this planet, needed a resource very, very, very badly. And the resource, let's say gold, because I've always been fascinated why gold was always the standard. Gold was always the most precious metal in terms of even the very economy.
And it's not even it's a very brittle metal. It's not even a good
Right.
metal per se. Right.
So let's say all of it, you needed something done, but you couldn't stay there, like being on Mars. And if you had the ability to get to this planet as an alien, or why wouldn't you manufacture, genetically engineer a being that could stay and do what you needed? And of course, with space-time and the time it takes to get from one galaxy to the other, we can't even calculate. So it's like light years. We don't have that ability. So maybe that could be a possibility. Maybe we're genetically engineered and we were left behind.
The craziest thing is there's no way for us to know. I mean, really,
Right.
Right.
there's really no way for us to know.
Well,
But if
maybe
I
that's
am an
by design.
alien, and
Right.
that's true. But if I am an alien, I'm glad that I have my husband around to take care of me and protect me. I will say that I have some weird dreams sometimes, and I tell him about them, and he's like, "See, I told you." I have this weird recurring dream, and that I don't know if I'm laying down. I don't know if I'm standing up. I don't know what's going on like with my physical body. But I can hear people talking or I can hear voices. I can't see anything, so it's like I'm asleep, but not, like when you're asleep and you can hear what's going on around you. I can
Mhm.
hear voices talking and they're talking about me. Sometimes I catch what they're saying, sometimes I don't. But when I do catch it, they're saying things like, "We're running out of time. You have to take her back." Or
Oh,
I think she's waking up, or I think she can hear us. And then when I hear that, this last time, it was last week actually, 2 days in a row, I heard that. I think she can hear us. And then I immediately woke up and I looked around and I had no idea where I was for a decent period of time. Like it was probably about 5 seconds. I'm looking around frantically thinking, "Where am I?" And I'm in my room and then I reach out and there's Shawn and I'm like, "Okay, God, I'm at home. Okay, I'm at home." But I didn't feel like I was at home and I didn't know where I was for a little while. And then I
Right.
tell him about this stuff and he's like, "See, I told you. They're taking you and bringing you back. I don't know what they're doing with you."
What if now follow this for a second? What if Shawn is also alien but has complete knowledge of what's going on, and he's here to monitor you because you're the experiment?
It's possible.
What if that? He's obviously a master of
Boom.
disguise. He looks like Joe Laurinaitis right now. He doesn't even look like himself. You know what I mean? So like, he's changing his appearance. He's incognito. I love that
I
set.
can't grow my hair anywhere else. I'm just going.
But this is so amazing because like when you talk about these types of things, and you know when I see the way I see religion is that there's scriptures that were written from a long time ago, and a lot of times, just like we talked about in the last episode, we talked about urban legends. Religion is not far off from urban legend because it's just a story handed down, handed down, handed down. It's embellished, it's interpreted by others, etc. And before you know it, you have this thing. Now you can worship and you can do whatever you like, and it's no disrespect to anybody who worships and stuff like that. But I think as a person who's into science, I believe it's more feasible that someone came down, planted, and left, or whatever the case is, than it is that we were miraculously just appeared, came out like toads, and fucking turned into human beings. Because the dinosaurs were reptiles. We're not reptiles. We're mammals. And to what degree in, like, for example, the dinosaur era, the prehistoric era, how many mammals were there in comparison to reptilian creatures? That always amazed me because I'm like, it's just two totally different things, you know. And then what do we have left? Like you mentioned birds, but like alligators and crocodiles, I think are our closest prehistoric relative, or not relative, but element from that era.
and
Uh,
sharks.
and turtles and
Yeah.
the thing, and turtles too.
There
But
are
yeah,
lots
sure.
of
Yeah,
organisms.
yeah.
You're getting back into evolutionary theory again, and that's a completely different topic than this. We all came from, and according to biological theory,
Mm-hmm.
evolutionary theory,
Mm-hmm.
we all came from the same common ancestor, and then as the earth changed, we had to adapt to our environments and make different adjustments in order for our species to survive. And so that's basically what's been going on. If you look into evolutionary adaptation and if you look into we call it the tree of life, we all
Right.
came from a common ancestor, and then those branches spread out, and some of them stopped and some of them kept going. But everything around us came from something from back then. But again, We're talking about evolution, and we're supposed to be talking about aliens.
Right, but I was tying in the aliens by saying that, getting to your topic about the evolutionary thing, that yes, the human species is of this planet,
Yes.
but the design was cross pollination, which I agree with you, Lily. That should probably be another episode.
Yeah,
But you were saying that you would hear these voices. So getting to the abduction thing, my thing about aliens as a separate thing is, it would be something that I don't know if we would even recognize. When Columbus landed on the shores, his ships weren't recognized. They had never seen anything like it. So there was no recognition. So we don't know. I have a hard time trying to wrap my head around. I know we talk about little green men, or the grays, and all of the terminology we've used for alien species, but I think it would be closer to what you might experience, where it would be a dream state. It would be very disconnected, and I think that if it was happening, that people who are very in tune have like little memories. But I think if they're there doing that, that they've got the technologies to say, oh, get them, send them back, and then and then it just kind of disappears into a dream state.
Well, I mean, if you watch you watch Fire in the Sky, and I do honestly believe that. I've seen that many times, and of course there's theatrical adaptations inside those stories or whatever.
Right.
But to make it a movie, but I truly believe that kind of stuff happened, because you hear it echoed. A lot of people like to throw out mass illusion or mass hysteria, or where it's like, oh yeah, well, 17 people had the same dream. I don't know how likely that is, that it's a dream and that's all it is. You can pass it off like that. Another movie which was more fiction than it was nonfiction was The Fourth Kind. I don't know if anybody saw that. That was with Mila Jovovich.
Oh yeah. Yep. I remember that. Oh yeah.
This is a more scary adaptation of what an alien abduction is like, as far as when they come, as far as the testing that happens, as far as the not knowing what's going on with me, what's going on, am I going crazy? It's really something where people are deemed psycho, weirdos, crazies, that type of thing, but it's just because that's what they saw. If I said I saw a unicorn tomorrow, you'd be like, damn, what are you smoking? But maybe I did. Maybe I saw
are you sharing?
a horse with a bump. No. I'm keeping it all to
so
myself.
that's an interesting point. I'd like everyone's input on this. Aliens, if they're there, is it really smart to communicate? In other words, we talk about reaching out, and if a species is far more advanced, would they be there to help, or would they be there to say, we're taking over? I mean, I'm oversimplifying the whole process, but I mean, it's almost, sometimes it's better, like, let's not invite them.
If you watch like Paranormal Caught on Camera, they have a lot of UFO videos on there. I'm outside of Philadelphia, and we had two separate sightings right over West Philadelphia. Okay. And I find it funny because the way that people are talking, like, holy shit, the aliens are coming, blah, 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 and they see it right in the bright of day. I honestly think that, I personally believe we are the experiment. We are constantly observed. I don't think it's that they're invading. I don't think it's that they're coming to befriend us. I think we are their subject matter. I think we are the guinea pigs in the cage, and that's why they come around. I think crop circles are for their communication, to say this point is where this is, this point's where that, almost like X is on a pirate ship map. I think that type of thing. And the reason why we're seeing more is, I think, because we're getting to the apex of this experiment, to say, hey, they've evolved and they're now getting closer to our level of intelligence. So we're seeing more of them.
Well,
Could
maybe it's
I don't know.
because we're becoming self-aware
Mm-hmm.
in a different way. Like that's why we're afraid of AI, because the last thing we want AI to be is self-aware, because then game over.
Oh yeah, we're done. We're done.
So that's an interesting point. Yeah. So and maybe that's why things are so odd now.
Yeah.
You know, who knows? Maybe
Yeah.
they're
Shawn
ready
and
to.
I have had a bunch of different conversations about this stuff. He has some very interesting perspectives as far as all of that.
He lives.
Go for it.
Well,
That means talk.
it's real quick. I mean, I'm just trying to expand what Danny was saying. I honestly think we were like an alien ant farm.
Yeah.
Like in an aquarium, and they're just watching what we're doing and observing what they like. And when they don't like what we're doing, they're gonna just like a sandcastle on the beach, just wash it away and start anew.
Wow.
If you
I
think,
think so.
that's what I think, because I mean, you look in the Bible, all those stories like Moses, the fire in the bush. You know what that was. I think my mom's side of the family were very, very religious, so you had to be to all the Bible stories.
Yeah.
And I think, excuse me, I think the Bible is just the old days ways of being a history book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those guys don't know what an alien is. It's a god, because that's what they were. I think that's what all those look at all those stories in the Bible when guys come down from the heavens. Come on, they're not telling you that there's an alien coming down to help us.
Right. When they make that statement about the chariots from the heavens, very possible.
Well, and that's across world civilizations, ancient world civilizations, and then now have passed down their beliefs and things like that. That's all over the world. They have similar stories.
Yep.
Why? Why and how did they have all of those similar stories?
Right.
It's very interesting.
Every culture has a story of the flood.
That's true. Yeah.
Every civilization, every place on the earth had their own story in their own language.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's true.
Very true.
It is very true. Now, I mean, do we? And here's another point, real quick. And what I find funny, when people think like we're the only intelligent beings in the universe, but meanwhile we can barely get off our planet. That's kind of, if that was the truth, how sad would that be? That this universe is such a big waste of fucking space because of the fact that we can barely get off our planet to observe everything else, and meanwhile, like that, we're the king hoorah on here. That's why.
Yeah, there's no way.
It can't be. It's scientifically.
There's no way.
Right.
I want to go to Mars.
And then also, we're terrible. We're the only species that just takes.
We're parasites.
All other species, we are parasites. All of the other species on the planet contribute something in some way. We can't even contribute when we die, because we put ourselves into the ground encased in something so that we can't contribute to the soil and make things grow. Like, what is wrong with us?
Well, maybe that's, again, if my thoughts are correct about being genetically engineered from another civilization, that maybe that's what we were created, and we can't escape that. I mean, we do our best from time to time. Now,
I was watching on, I think it was like the ID channel. It was like Insane Women. It was like the women that always like kill their husbands and shit. And this lady killed her husband, right? And dumped him in a shallow grave. So is she really a maniac, or is she helping?
Well, I mean, it's arguable, because at least she is contributing to the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Her husband's dead body is putting nitrogen into the soil. So, I mean, you could argue it that way, but also, it's not a good idea to kill your husband.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I'm just throwing it out there,
On that note, I gotta go, guys.
Sure.
I love you, honey.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Shawn, it was a pleasure.
Yes, sir. Thank
nice
you.
meeting you.
What an amazing thing. I love his views on this. Guys, I mean, this is a question that's really hot button now, more than any other time, because I think we have more sightings than we ever had. And it goes back to, like you said, being more self-aware, having more technology. We're mimicking what we see. If you go to different, I saw a video where someone was at an installation. I forget exactly where it was. It wasn't in this country, but like it was, they had what looked like a drone, but it was like a flying saucer. And it was, so they didn't think it was alien. They thought it was like earthbound craft, but they're like the whole design of it. It's like, where are you getting these ideas from? Are you getting this from science fiction? Is this an H.G. Wells type of scenario? Is this a Gene Roddenberry type of thing? Or are we actually building off of a blueprint that maybe somebody found, confiscated, and are using for all of our technology?
Well, Shawn didn't get the chance to talk about it, but he has ideas about that too. Especially in ancient civilizations, structures like the pyramids, and
Yes.
and if you look, there are so many different structures all over the world. And that's another point too. There are pyramids all over the place, and we really can't explain why or how they surfaced or they happen to be there. But Shawn has really strong beliefs that they got that type of design and that kind of engineering and that kind of direction from another place, because we as humans that far back should not have been able to put that together,
Right.
and it came together somehow. And so that's another thing that Shawn talks about a lot. That's pretty
It's a
interesting.
shame, and obviously we can't do this because it's a historic landmark, but how much we would actually learn if we took one pyramid and dismantled it. You know what I mean? Like broke it down, and you can't do that. I mean, I understand it. I'm not saying to do that, but to be able to break that down and actually find out what is happening in a pyramid. What is the design for? What is it doing? What is it encasing inside other than tombs?
They did try to rebuild a pyramid. This was, oh my God, this had to have been 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Using modern technology. They couldn't do it.
Right.
They couldn't do it. They had, all the cranes, all this stuff. I mean, with this, the measurements of the pyramids, couldn't do it.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's one of those things that we can't really explain it, and all we can do is speculate and theorize and hypothesize, and that's as far as we've gotten so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What an amazing thing. I think, Lil, I don't know that you're an alien. If you are, you're a nice looking one.
Thanks.
You're not a gray, thank God. You don't have big black eyes or anything like that. But it's an amazing thing. If you're watching this, comment down below. Have you ever thought about this? Have you ever had any experiences? We would love to hear about it. Also, too, there's so many different things you can look up. There's so many different things you can do. I mean, movies can build your imagination, but actual theory and actual investigations, I think, is really where it's at, to really get a real bird's eye view of what we're dealing with and what's going on, and why are we seeing so many ships? Why are we seeing so many UFOs? Why are we seeing so many cryptids? Because that's another thing too. We have so many things on this planet we don't understand still. Like, how does a cryptid, which most famous would be a Bigfoot, live on this planet? People cite it all the time, but can never find it. What is that? Is that a beta version of us that was left here? That, you see what I'm saying? There's so many.
That's another topic for another time.
Yeah, we will bring that up. We're going to talk about Bigfoot very soon. Chris, take us away.
All right. What a great show. Thank you so much, Lily. It was great to have Shawn on the show.
It really was.
And thank you, Danny. We had a great time. And like Danny said, if you have any experiences or any thoughts on the strange lights in the sky, please leave them below. It'll be great to hear.
Please. Till next time, guys. Keep your eyes to the stars. We'll catch you soon.